Well, so we just spoke about. I have another really interesting article to read. Okay, so we spoke about King Tut, right? And I wish I had that guy's image ready. I'll check my email after the when we hit a break or whatever. We just talked about King Tut, but we know that some things can, like, there's some people that saw John Deere change in the 70s. I've talked to these people, okay? And
Yeah.
for many other people, they know that it was John Deere without that 30 well after the 70s. So it doesn't change for everybody at the same time. Now, when we talk about Bible changes, right? And thank you, Tommy, by the way, because I'm going to show the thing that you sent me finally. I'm going to get into that. We talk about Bible changes. Tommy, that flat fellow. We've seen very strange things happen. Like, a lot of people started seeing the Bible changes around 2016 going forward. Some people saw a lot of them earlier. But there's some things that we know change at different times for different people. We also know that, like, some of the changes things get inserted into motion pictures to back up Mandela effects, right? Like, I talked about it with the Mickey Ward, and that whole scene that got inserted into the movie where he's like, "Why do you think my name has an E in it?" Because it doesn't, right? But we also talked about, you remember the Clint Eastwood movie 1974, where it shows where he's talking about the wolf and the lamb instead of the lion? You know which movie I'm talking about? I forget the name of it. Somebody can tell me in the chat.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what's your take on that? Pretty much same as
Well,
what we've talked about.
I'm going to say this because it's the as you were talking, it was the first thing that came to my mind is what if in that one the Mickey, what was the name of the movie?
The fighter.
The Fighter. What if once you became aware of that, your consciousness made the change in the movie? What if you did that?
Yeah,
What if
that's what I'm
that
kind
was
of.
your consciousness's way of communicating back to you that you're in sync, that you have the power to change anything? You can do Mandela effects yourself. This is what I'm thinking. What if we are taking over their system, their construct with our own innate
And
human power, creative imagination, and we are literally starting to hijack, and when we do that, we're greater than what this construct is, so we can override it. So the fact that that movie now reflects your knowledge of what that was, and that was a change, and now it's said in the script. What if
yeah,
you did that?
yeah, and I think that might happen with when people seek out the changes of scripture, or when they're first aware there might be a problem. And I think why some people are seeing it way back in the past, or it could be, on a deeper level. I mean, I know it's kind of wild out there thinking, but what's happening is crazy. The fact that reality changes, now all this other stuff is retroactively, rewriting so much of the reality around it. I mean, it's like a whole new reality is being placed around it. Now, I'm going to read a newspaper clipping that Tommy That Flat Fellow sent me. November 2nd, 1963. How close is that to JFK? 3 days?
What date was it again?
November 5th, 1963. November 2nd, I mean. Is
Yeah,
JFK
he
the
was the
5th?
22nd. He was shot the 22nd of November.
Well, check what else people were looking into at this time.
But that's
So,
right. That's right. It right up to it. That's the entrance,
check
the lead up.
check this out, my friend. Okay, and let me zoom in a little more if I can.
Oh wow!
Okay, November 2nd, 1963. Biblical proof of lamb and lion laying together sought. This is very interesting. Okay,
And
by
that's
Tom.
63.
Yeah, so this is like 60 fucking years ago.
Wow.
People were searching for the lion and the lamb, expecting it to be in there. Now, here's the thing. I want to lay something out before I even read this that throws another wrinkle into this. Okay? There are people, a lot of people saw that incremental change go down, and I've talked about how it was used against us many times. So we know that for everyone, all the Bibles hadn't changed yet to wolf, at least for a lot of people we personally know, just in the last several years, until they looked for it and that process kind of
Oh,
started, which is what we just talked about. But this process started for these people back in the 1960s. So let's read it. During the past week, a lot of Waconians have, I don't know what a Waconian is. Is that somebody from a certain state? Or I don't know what that means. It's Waco, Texas. Okay, people from Waco. Oh, all these interesting connections. The Waco, Texas newspaper,
Wow.
3 weeks before JFK, and they're looking for the lion and the lamb. During the past week, a lot of Waconians have helped us to look for what a world of people take for granted. The biblical origin of what is taken as a familiar quotation about the lion laying down with the lamb. It is taken for granted that somewhere in the Bible is the direct quotation, and the lion shall lie down with the lamb. This is supposed to be the epitome of peace, the end of conflict, but the quotation just isn't there. Isn't this? This is wild, dude, because this is 60 years ago, guys, almost. And again, we watched this incrementally change. So it didn't change with so many people we know for sure until after. They didn't just miss it. They didn't just miss it. We know that. Somewhere along the line, the prophet Isaiah, who is supposed to have written about the lion and the lamb, has been misquoted or paraphrased. Don't you love it, dude? All this, you just misquote the Bible, paraphrase it, no big deal now, you know. It's just. So for the last week, a number of Waconians have helped us to hunt for the lion laying down with the lamb, or vice versa. The search has been interesting. It has extended to Baptist Bela, to Catholic St. Mary's Church of the Assumption, to the Masonic Grand Lodge of Texas, Library to Apostle St. Paul's Church, and to Augustine, Rome. And nobody has found in print a lion lying down with a lamb. We have searched just about everywhere but the Quran. It all started when Paul Kroom, in his Big D column in Dallas News, apprised his readers that the familiar saying, the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, isn't in the Bible. A correspondent had so advised Kroom, who looked it up, and sure enough, it isn't. The saying is a paraphrase. Nathan, how do you, like, when is it common to just switch an animal as a paraphrase? Like, that doesn't make any sense, dude. Like, that's not how you paraphrase something, dude.
They're going from the place, whoever's writing this, that's not possible. It couldn't have changed. So they're from the default place again. Wouldn't it have been wonderful if they'd said, this has got to be a miracle? For sure that was in there. God has changed it for some reason. But that never would have crossed their mind, you see. And they're talking about what? A supernatural book full of supernatural stuff happening.
This is an in-depth story, too. Like, I can't believe we haven't heard about this yet. Like, this is deep, dude. It all started when Kroom, in his Big D column in the Dallas News, apprised his readers that the familiar saying, lion shall lie down with the lamb, it isn't in the Bible. A correspondent had so advised Kroom, who looked it up, and sure enough, it isn't. The saying is a paraphrase of a part of the 6th verse of the 11th chapter of Isaiah. That verse reads in the King James Version of the Bible, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion, and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. Well, a fatling is a young animal, calf, kid, or lamb, fattened for sacrifice, so the sense is the same. But you ought to quote exactly when you quote, and the King James Bible simply doesn't give you that quote. This surprised Kroom, who commented that he wondered what else Isaiah had left out. He didn't leave it out, it got taken out. It surprised us too, and we looked it up to make sure.
Reverend Martin Luther King said it in a speech. He quoted it right out of Isaiah.
And John Smith in the 1800s. Joseph Smith, I'm sorry. I always say John.
Joseph. Yeah, Joseph Smith.
Kroom was right, as we expected him to be. Our concordance, though deals only with the King James Version, and seeing as how the words meant the same thing as what people say, we thought we might be able to find it in some other version of the Holy Writ. So we looked in our Douay, and it said, the lion and sheep shall abide together. Our revised version said the lion and the fatling. We telephoned Dr. Kyle Yates, Baylor University Bible scholar, and he was surprised. He said he was sure it was in the Bible. We told him what Kroom said about wondering what else Isaiah left out, and Dr. Yates said he wouldn't put just that way. He looked in his concordance and couldn't find any lion and lamb lying together, but he agreed with us that it might read that way in another translation of the Bible. He said the Hebrew words, which we know means yellow animal, the Hebrew words, the original, because Karen called that out, the original could be translated in several ways. Now, when you think yellow animal, I certainly would think a lion, not a wolf, I'm just saying. So we telephoned Rabbi Morris Shapiro of the congregation Agudath Jacob.
Oh, Lord, they're getting the rabbi in now. Okay.
And we asked him to look up the Hebrew. He did, and also a lot of commentators. And they all came out in English just about the way the King James Version does. We remembered Roger Conger had a breeches Bible, the one that says Adam and Eve made themselves breeches out of the fig leaves. We telephoned him, told him about the lion and lamb, and he was surprised too. You're not going to find anybody that isn't surprised. Shocker. It is kind of funny to just laugh at how crazy this reality
It's
is.
hysterical because they will never even, the thought that it could have changed supernaturally never crosses their mind as even being a possibility. Never once.
It's
That's
wild.
the consciousness they're looking at it in. They can't see it. It's right in front of their face. It's magic. You've been told there is no magic, so you can't see it.
Exactly.
Yet you're talking about a book with magical stuff going down in it that they believe.
Yep.
It's the weirdest thing. It's a cognitive dissonance unlike anything I've witnessed.
It's a complete spiritual block, and it's really interesting with the people
Has
that
to
are
be.
really into the Bible.
And these are
because it's
spiritual
like-
people at this
That's what I'm
church.
saying.
And this is the religion writer here. This is supposed to be a very spiritual person writing this article.
We telephoned him, told him about the lion and lamb, and he was surprised too. He said he had loaned his Bible to the Masonic Grand Lodge Library. We telephoned that library, and they looked Isaiah 11:6 in the Breeches Bible and got the answer. So we telephoned the Baylor Library, and Cloyd H. McClung really put himself to a lot of trouble for us. He looked in the Great Bible and the Bishop's Bible. Oh, he was looking frantically, I'm sure, because he's like, I know it's in here. I've read it. The Geneva Bible, all of which preceded the King James Bible. I would like to look at these for some other reasons, though. I do have interest in, because there's some interesting things in that Tyndale Bible as well, guys. We'll talk about that after. The King James Bible, and throughout all these, the lion and the fatling or something else, never a lamb, were together as in the KJ, not in the often used words. He was surprised. He then went to books of familiar quotations, searched several of them, including Bartlett and Burton Stevenson, and found no lion and lamb laying together anywhere else. The closest he got was a line from Virgil's fourth Eclogu, whatever that word is, where it stated that the huge lions won't bother the flocks. We thought about the Episcopal Prayer Book, which has put many familiar phrases into the language. But Reverend Frank Magnum, assistant rector at the St. Paul, said the lion and lamb weren't there. Our concordance doesn't include citations from the Apocrypha, the books Protestants regard as non-canonical. The Catholic Bible includes these books, so we called MSGR, that messenger, I don't know, J.J. Kearns of St. Mary's Church of the Assumption, and told him our problem. He too was convinced that the lion like that. Look at all
Every
these people.
last one of them. These are people that went to divinity school.
I wish I made these calls and had it recorded. This would have been one hell of a fucking video, dude.
God. Because the truth is impossible to them, so they can't see it.
Wow. Not a paraphrase, but he looked in his concordance, which includes what Protestants call the Apocrypha, couldn't find it. Then we gave up. The hunt wasn't a total loss, though. Looking up the names of the various translations we wanted to look in, we found some on the order of the Breeches Bible that won their names from strange things that are happening to them. And then it just goes on to how different Bibles got their names and nothing more about the lion and lamb, except right down here. Maybe after all, in some of the apparent paintings, the lion lies down with the lamb. But nobody has found that quotation in print. It apparently exists only in parable.